Hey, John, how you doing this morning?
Hey, Roland, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I've had a good week. I'm so glad we actually got the chance to catch up again within the week. It's amazing what you can do when you try.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just a little effort goes a long way, doesn't it?
You know, it does. That's right. You know what happened for me after we chatted last week? I realized part of the reason that we were able to get together so often in the past, obviously we're motivated by our relationship, but we're exploring ideas together, and we just made it happen. And and so over the last probably 6, 12 months, what has been front and center for us has been the things that preoccupy us in terms of our career space. But then maybe it's not so hard to just say, yeah, no, this is important. So while I still can't guarantee that we'll be able to do it every week, I would really like to try to do that if you're up for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely up for it.
I
I'd love to.
had so much fun last week. That was just good.
Yeah. Oh, I enjoy the laugh, man. It was healing. I think laughter is a good source of medicine for our hearts and souls. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And the one thing that we've always been able to do is laugh, right? It's just been a
Oh,
piece of the
yeah.
relationship. Hey, that reminds me. Last week in our conversation, we're laughing about the bromance, and we're making it very clear
Mhm.
that we're in good quality heterosexual relationships. Um, and the thought kind of occurred afterwards that some people might have seen that as marginalizing of particularly the LGBTQ community, and I'm sure we would want to make it clear that we just don't live in the space of judgment. That it's easy for a joke to end up coming across as marginalizing people, and that certainly wasn't our intent, and nor was it our heart. We want to live in that space of embrace and understanding. So if anybody watching that thought, well, where are they coming from, or they got a little bit offended by that, we would certainly be in that place of being apologetic, right? We have no desire to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I think it's good to be sensitive. I mean, I think, we've talked a little bit about it, and, we've pointed out that we don't think that anyone was offended by it, but that's because we look at the world from our perspectives and we know what our heart was. So being aware that somebody might be offended, I think is good. I think that represents empathy. And if so, once again, if anyone was offended by that, we would be very apologetic about that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It,
Absolutely.
it's not. It's true that regardless of the space in the world that you come from, there are always pieces that define us, and those things are represented by our life journey, our pains, our joys, our hopes, our victories, our
Yeah.
defeats, um, and we move into the world from that space, right? And it's easy when you're communicating with someone, particularly if you don't know their heart, for there to be a sense that they don't understand my struggle, and the things that go to make up who I am, they don't understand it, and therefore they're marginalizing it. That's not a difficult place for us to be in, right?
I don't think so. I think it's easy for us to overlook where someone's grounding their identity and worth, and we certainly want that to be grounded in a place of love and what love means, and clearly defining what love is.
Right.
I think love is other centered and self giving
Yep.
at its core, and and so the reality is, it seems like for empathy to take place, there can't be shame
Right.
present,
Right.
or else empathy gets shut down. And empathy at its core is perspective taking, and
Right.
its most basic element. It is to be able to step in someone else's shoe and say, hey, man, I can see when I said that or did that, that would have actually hurt you.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. That's right.
and, and, and we can't do that if we have internalized shame, because internalized shame will always shut down that empathy at perspective taking because I'll always be concerned about how you perceive me,
Right. Right.
not how you actually may see the world. It's more about myself than it is about you. And
that,
that's the risk we take if we have shame.
exactly, John. The piece of empathy is being able to say, well, I can understand your experience or how you're feeling because I know how I feel in that same kind of a space. I remember when we lived in Texas for 7 years, and so this is something that people that have traveled extensively are probably aware of, but most people aren't necessarily aware of, that when you're in an environment and your accent is different from everybody, you're always aware that you're a little bit different. And so you tune to people saying things that identify you according to your accent. So for me, and as being an Australian, being an Australian's a very valuable thing to me. It's part of my identity. But when you're in that environment where it's either people say, oh, that's, you've got such a lovely accent. I thought you're constantly aware that you're different, and all you want to do is be the same. I'll never forget though. I mean, this is just one of those great things. I went to a hardware store when we lived in Dallas, and I got some timber, and I was talking to the guy behind the counter. And after a while, he was looking at me quizzically, and he said to me, "Are you from West Texas?" If you know Texans, the world is Texas, right? So he was trying to work out which part of Texas I was from.
Yeah. How'd you respond?
Well, I just said, yeah, I'm from far West Texas. And so he was happy with that. He was completely happy with that. That's fair enough. And I said, yeah, man, Australia is far West Texas.
But it was the awareness for you that, hey, I'm different and I may not belong here or be perceived to belong here because I'm not one of you, right? Or I'm not. And the one of you is whatever that is becomes a place where shame can develop, right?
That's
if
exactly
I don't feel like I can be accepted.
Remember being in a university class, and there was a question asked about things that cause us to feel different. And this girl who was genuinely a beautiful girl, but she was redhead, talked about the pain of being a redhead. So everybody sitting there is looking at her with a jaw open. How could you possibly say that? You are beautiful. But for her, that point of difference was a place of pain because she thought people were laughing at her throughout her life. And she may well have had many experiences where people laughed at her, even good-naturedly, but because of her red hair. So that then became a piece of her struggle. So shame always takes us to that place where we are worse. We are not as good as others, and it finds those identity pieces to do that with. So things that we can think of, one person looking in might think of, that's wonderful, that's incredibly valuable. We can look at the same thing and say, well, I'm not good enough. I'm different. And empathy has to work in that space, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and empathy actually leads us to guilt, not shame.
Right.
So when we can do that perspective taking,
right,
we can actually have room for repair of a relational rupture.
Right.
Because we can actually say, you know what, I can see when I said that or did that.
Yeah.
That probably hurt you, and I want to repair that.
Yeah. Well, shame says defense,
there.
Right? Every time you see a person being defensive, oh, I didn't mean that. Just stop it. I didn't mean that. That defensiveness, right. That's shame. And there's, when you see a person in that space, all you want to do is go, just stop, just slow down, because the healing of the relationship through saying, hey, I'm sorry. What we try and do is look at the world through the eyes of the other person. And love always seeks to embrace and understand, which is the empathy piece. And you're right, that then leads us to a sense of guilt for which we can then say, hey, I'm sorry, and it's healed. Whereas shame can't go that place. it won't go to that place.
Yeah, I think of Dr. Donald Nathanson's Compass of Shame in that
Mm-hmm.
space,
Mm-hmm.
where he basically says internalized shame can only go in four directions. It's going to either attack others,
Mm-hmm.
attack self, hide, or withdraw.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the reality. Even just observing life, even as we think about our own life or the life experience we have in relationships, that tends to go there if we really are paying attention. We see that.
Yeah.
Shame does go there, and that's always relational disconnection.
Yeah.
Guilt becomes a pretty healthy thing for us. We need guilt.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And what's strange about that is even when you say that, it's kind of like the shame response to that is like, oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. That would say I'm a bad person. But if we're able to recognize that guilt is this healthy process of being able to say, lead us to a place where I say, I'm sorry, and then forgiveness flows, that's all good and healthy. Guilt lines up with love, but shame lines up with isolation, disconnection, and personal identity distraction. So it is a healthy relationship where we're able to say, I'm sorry. And
yeah. Identity it's where, and it's having enough self-reflection to think about, where is my identity and worth grounded in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
I was just having a conversation this week with someone, and I won't share the details about their story, but I'll share the awareness that came from my story in the conversation. Because of the conversation, I became aware of the fact that, I'm the youngest of three. Mm. And I grew up actually being a clown. I wasn't a clown necessarily in public all the time because I was shy in some of those spaces, but around people that I felt comfortable with, I used humor as a way of trying to get along. And I realized that there's a lot of times in my life that humor is actually where I feel like I have to be in my relationship with people in order to be accepted. Right. And so I feel like I have to be funny, or if I'm not, I won't be accepted. Yeah. Well, that's an identity and worth issue. Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't mean humor is bad. Right. It means if I'm having to use the humor in order for you to accept me, and I feel like that's a requirement for our relational capacity with one another, it's shame-inducing. Yep. And it's usually coming from a place of shame, and it feeds the cycle of shame. Yep. And deepens that even more.
And as in all, excuse me, as in all those things, the effective response is love, and empathy is a piece of love. Yeah. I think one of the things that you said there that's really important, and we probably need to close with this, but it's humor is not a bad thing. But shame can take that good thing and distort it, and that's always what seems to happen with shame. But it's always distorting our perspective. It's always changing things. So the end result is we almost are never looking at the world the way it is. We're looking at the world through our own struggle.
And if I'm using it to try and keep you at arm's length so you don't get too close,
right.
It's a defense mechanism to keep me with relational disconnection with you.
Yeah, mate, that is awesome. Well, John, thanks for another good chat, and we'll just keep picking up like that and keep working with it. That's awesome. I'm loving that. These little pieces of reality that we're trying to struggle with.
Yeah, you bet, man. Looking forward to talking to you again.
Thanks, John. Talk to you later, mate.
All right.
All right, we're recording now. You good?
Yeah, where's your dog? The question is, are you good?
All right, let's I can edit all that out. So that's good. All right, let's straight face.